guys, welcome back to podcast 3 of the Harry and Tom SMMA podcast. We still haven't got a name for it yet. That will come in time. But the preface of this podcast, if you've not listened to our previous episodes, is to talk about everything SMMA, everything business, entrepreneurship, earning money online, Facebook ads, digital marketing, social media, and kind of cover everything that you'd usually have to pay for in a course from, the other shitty gurus on the internet. Not that we call ourselves gurus, but yeah, that's kind of the preface of the podcast. And you are now listening to the one and only episode 3.
So, Harry, let's kick things off, mate. I actually saw a few things last night, which I wanted to talk about on this podcast, which anger me kind of a lot.
What are those?
And I'm sure people... Huh?
What are those, mate? What pisses you off?
I tell you what does piss me off. It's like when you see people in this industry who are basically making out that SMMA is like a holiday jolly, and that you can get a couple of clients, sit on a beach and just chill at home and do basically fuck all work. I think it's absolutely fucking disgusting how the people are giving the image of this industry where you don't have to work very hard and you just get a very easy passive income come in by doing jack shit in terms of work. People are believing it. They're taking that in, and they genuinely go into the SMMA space with an initial mindset that they don't have to work hard. They just got to get a couple of clients, money flows, and they're as good as gold, and they can just chill and hang out and do fuck all.
No.
People are believing it. It's been sold that way. And some courses are actually, you see that are actually pitching it based on the fact that you can just work a couple of hours a week.
Yeah. And then
they're saying that they're failing. I find that's just ridiculous. It's completely not the right image for it.
Yeah. And that's going to shock a lot of people. A lot of people think SMMA is a passive income when it really isn't. In fact, when you first sign a client, those first 2 or 3 months are going to be the most you work on that client, 100%. Because you've got to onboard them, you've got to set up funnels, landing pages, set up all the email marketing sequences, have strategy meetings with them. That's going to be the time where you're going to struggle to get them the most results, because you've got to be building data, the testing phases. And it's not as simple as you sign a client, you get one ad up to one lead gen form that brings them in 5 leads or 5 sales a day, and you just sit back on a beach for the rest of your time with that client. It just doesn't work like that, does it?
No, it doesn't. And also it's the keeping of the client and the communication of the client. Imagine if you're out and you're doing other things and your client's ringing you to get some answers on a particular campaign, and you're sort of, not on a beach as such, but some people take it seriously as that, or that you're out doing stuff. It's so unprofessional. You have to be on top of your communication game. You have to be on top of your ads, and whatever ads you're running, you need to understand why they're working, if they're not working, what you're doing to change it. It's a complete bullshit perception that is leaked out over the last 3 years from certain people, and it's setting people up for failure big time.
Because people I don't think people think it's a real business model. I think people see the SMMA business model being sold through Instagram ads, and they think it's the same as trading or this self-management business, but it's not. It's a real business model. You can end up with 10, 15, 100 employees for your agency in 10 years time. And that's it's a real business model. And I think people don't think it's a real business model because loads of other people do it. I know when I grew up, I thought I had to invent like a gadget, or, in Dragon's Den, you see people have like little gizmos that go on the back of desks and they sort out your wiring or stuff like that. I always thought to be a millionaire or have a successful business, you had to have something like that, but you really don't. You can just recreate a business model that already exists, put your spin on it by being a good businessman or perfecting a skill that's better than everyone else's, and you have a super successful business. But people don't treat it that way. People treat it as quick cash. And to be honest, mate, a lot of people, that's probably all they want. All they want is, I want to go on a really extravagant holiday. Let me start an SMMA, get 4 clients, get 10 grand, and then I'll quit.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about SMMA digital marketing is the one thing that is an absolute definite that you can do is work from anywhere. Like, you can work from anywhere that you like. as long as you have a laptop and an internet connection, that part of the dream is very much real.
Yeah.
Me and you, I work quite often from New York. I go there every month. So I can easily pick up my shit and go to New York and work for an entire week. You do the same, going from London to other parts of the country where you go to. So that is not a myth, that's real. And that is a huge, huge benefit to SMMA. The other benefit is that you don't have anyone to answer to but yourself. However, that also causes problems for people because there's no one to make them responsible and accountable. So they do a couple of cold calls in a day, or they send a few DMs to get a few clients, but no one is pushing them to say, hey, I asked for 25 today. I asked for 40. I asked for 40 cold calls today, Tom. You've only done 6. It's like when you go to the gym. If you're just going for half an hour and you're not really pushing yourself, then you'll never get results, which is why personal trainers exist, because they want to pay somebody else to make them accountable and to get them results. So I do think that, yes, there's so much myth around SMMA in terms of the lifestyle that people have told you can create, when it's total fucking shit. It's a lie. They're lying to you. It's actually kind of lying to you.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? The benefits and drawbacks of SMMA, because everything that's a positive can also be a negative if you don't treat it in the right way, like everything you've just said. But that kind of leads on to the next point. Not something that we've planned, but it's just sprouted in my mind. When to stop what you're doing and try something new. You mentioned there, right? If you do 10 cold calls in a day and book a meeting, how do you know what's working? How do you know what isn't working and when to switch? For example, niches. People will start in a niche, do 100 cold calls, 100 outreaches, get no clients. That's when it's an appropriate time to switch. But when do you think you should make that decision across all aspects? For me, if you're cold calling and booking meetings, as long as you're not doing 1,000 cold calls to get one meeting, I'd still continue. Like someone asked me, I think he said he did 100 cold calls and booked 5 meetings, which is 5% meeting rate, which I think is quite good, because you can do 100 cold calls. That's decent, isn't it?
I would say 5% is something you need to look at. However, the question you've asked is actually a 2-part question, because it's not a 2-part question, but there's 2 answers to it. When is the time to switch when things aren't working? You have to actually get to the root cause of why it's not working. Now, it could be that the niche is actually perfect. The niche is a good niche, but you suck at cold calling.
Yeah.
That then is an issue on you. You're not good enough at this present moment. Doesn't mean you can't train and learn. But if you've made 100 cold calls and you've not got a single appointment from 100 cold calls, don't give up. You just need to establish the root cause of that. Do you suck at cold calling? Are you just basically wasting people's time when you're calling them? If you are, and they're getting no value, because whenever you ring someone, they have to take some value from you. They have to make it worthwhile, that they've actually picked up the phone and gone, hello, who are you? What do you want? Right, you've got my attention. Talk to me. You need to master that knack. And it is a knack. It really is a skill which you can learn. So that's one element of it. The other one is actually you're calling people who there isn't really the niche and the need for your services. That's 2 different things. So the client doesn't need you. They're not bothered about you. That's why you're not getting results. That's why you're not getting meetings booked, or you suck at cold calling. Your DMs are suck too. They don't make any sense. No one's reading them. They're just not, your emails are bouncing. All these things you have to kind of establish and get to the root cause of why you're not working. And sometimes I would say, actually, mate, 90% of the time, it's you.
Yeah,
it's your fault. Absolutely, your fault.
And the same way you need to split test everything with ads. You need to do that with your outreach and everything you do there. Like you said,
completely.
You can't do the same cold calling method and technique and strategy to one niche and say it's the niche's fault. It could be the cold calling fault. It could be the time of day that you're doing all the cold calls. You need to do everything. Someone messaged me saying on the bank holiday Monday, which is a public holiday in England, he did 50 cold calls and no one picked up. And then he realized it was a bank holiday. That's why no businesses were answering. But if that was someone's first time calling, or if it was someone in the US cold calling people in the UK on that Monday, they'd say, I'm not going after clients in the UK because no one answers. You have to do it for a long period of time. And like with Facebook ads, edit the control variable in the experiment. I think everything can be seen as an experiment. That sounds super fucking nerdy, but it can be. It can be to draw. That's the only way you can draw a sensible conclusion on anything.
Yeah.
So
no, it really is. And I think I always think, I think 5% is, if you're cold calling or doing any type of outreach, have a look at what return you're getting on 5%. So you should be getting a 5%, maybe more, depending on the actual method. But I think that's a good benchmark, 5%.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing 100 cold calls, you know, that's decent.
I think it's really, people are going to listen to this and say, oh, you're not chatting shit, but you're making it seem way easier than it is. But the amount of people that have gone through your cold calling training, Tom, and miraculously suddenly start to,
that is a word.
Suddenly start to sign clients or book meetings is just mental. But your cold calling strategy isn't this, what a lot of people are going to listen to this and think it's not some like hidden phrase that you say on a call to book a meeting. I think that's what people think it is. People think you say.
I'll tell you what, Harry. I'll give a tip right here, right now on cold calling. Okay, if you're cold calling a business, you need to throw in, one of the biggest issues people have when you cold call them is this: they think, "Fuck, how long is this going to take? How long is this person going to keep me on the phone for?" That is what the person who you've just called is thinking. They're thinking, what does he want and how much fucking time does he want from me? Because I haven't got it. So when you're cold calling, you need to ease the client that you're speaking to. And by doing that, you have to throw in what's called an FTR. An FTR is a fake time restraint. Okay. So you are going to tell the client that you're going to be just 90 seconds long. Okay. So you ring up a client and say, hey, can I speak to blah, blah, blah. Hi, Jim. Let's call him Jim. Hi, Jim. Look, I know you're a busy man. So am I. But I just want 90 seconds to tell you what I'm about and how I can help you. And then go straight into a question. Yeah. You've told him it's going to be 90 seconds. We all know it ain't going to be 90 seconds. It's going to be hopefully 10 minutes. But you've got to reassure, if he's in his head thinking, okay, this guy wants 90 seconds. And in that 90 seconds, you do not sell to them. And people listening to this, get a grip. You cannot sell to someone in 90 seconds. That's not the aim. Your aim is to give them enough info where they then commit to 10 minutes on another day. And that's all you're asking when you're cold calling is, look, I want your undivided attention for 8 to 10 minutes on a day that suits you. When can we shoot that and do that?
Yeah. For me, mate, the biggest mistake people make on cold calling, and I hate to see it, but it's also what I did when I first started, is people forget they're having a conversation with a human being. They'll pick up the phone and this is literally what they'll do. They'll dial the number, pick up the phone and go, hi, my name's Harry. I own a digital marketing agency in London. I offer Facebook ads, email marketing, sales funnels. I'm going to get you 10x your ad spend. If you've not run Facebook ads, I can run Facebook ads for you. There, you're leaving a massive opportunity on the table. Can I have a meeting? And the bloke's like, I was washing my car a minute ago. Like,
it's too much information. It's overwhelmed and they're not listening to you.
People forget they're having a conversation, but that's down to nerves. It's 100% down to nerves and also not knowing what to do.
I think it's lack of awareness and knowledge on how to cold call. They just haven't done their research on what works, and then nerves. Yeah, absolutely right. And it's fear. It's fear that they want to get it over and done with before they get hung up on.
It's also putting off the person on the end of the phone getting back, like speaking back to them. Because if you keep speaking, it's giving them the opportunity to not speak and tell you to fuck off, basically.
Do you know what, mate? I fucking love cold calling. I absolutely love cold calling. I remember when we were shooting stuff for our academy, you know, I did 7 cold calls and got 2 appointments. And I absolutely, the buzz you get when even just someone saying, yeah, I want to talk about it. It's interesting, Tom. I want to talk about it. Game over. And I love it because there's nothing better than someone hanging the phone up on you.
Yeah, no, it's funny. If you do it with someone as well, it's funny. Like, even if you have just your friend next to you and say, right, mate, do you want to come over and just during the day, if they're not working for obvious reasons, and just say, do you want to listen to me and just have a laugh with me cold calling? Yeah, obviously, you're not going to laugh over the phone to a client, but when you're doing it with someone, when you get told to fuck off, you laugh about it and then you go again.
Or record yourself with another phone. And So that, and actually that's a really great way to learn, because you'll get to understand how you're doing things and what you sound like. But it is, yeah, say you and your buddy are trying to get into SMA together and you're struggling, get together in a room and cold call together.
Yeah.
Because you'll bounce. It's like that episode. It's like that scene in The Wolf of Wall Street, where he's on the cold call and he's got all his boys behind him. Fucking hilarious. But I do absolutely love cold calling. And I think if people are listening to this and you're struggling to get results, you need to flip your attention to cold calling. You will, I promise you, well, not promise because I can't guarantee, but you will, what I can say is you'll get a far quicker result. It will be so awkward and make you feel like shit, but there's nothing better than, I've been called some raw words, which I can't possibly repeat on a podcast. But, I thoroughly enjoy people saying no or challenging me for reasons why they don't want to be on the call.
Yeah.
And again, that comes down to other ways of handling it. But it's so much fun, man. You can't take it personally. People want to hang up the phone to you. They're going to hang up the fucking phone. Like,
yeah.
You just laugh at it and go, what a dude, and then move on.
Yeah. Like once you get told to fuck off once or twice in the most aggressive way possible, it kind of doesn't have the same hit the second or third time.
It's like water. It's like water off a duck's back, mate. When you've been told to fuck off, you know what?
Fuck off and die, or what? We're really not selling cold calling here, but
it doesn't happen. I don't get told to fuck off and die very often, but I have been told to fuck off and die. Yeah. I didn't, because I'm still here doing the podcast.
People always message me, Harry, what's the quickest way to sign a client? And there's loads of different ways I'd like to answer that question, but the real truth of it is just picking up the phone and cold calling. That people want to, it's not the answer people want to hear. People message that knowing that's the answer. They want to hear you send this 4-sentence Instagram DM and you'll sign a client. That's not the reality of it. The reality is you have to pick up the phone. Like there's no easier way to sign a client than speaking on the phone directly to them. You've got 100% of their attention. Through an Instagram DM or a LinkedIn, even a LinkedIn message, which I'm a big fan of, you've not got 100% of their attention. They might reply.
I had a guy, you're absolutely right. I had a guy message me last week saying, hi, Tom, I've DM'd 30 people or whatever, and I'm not getting anywhere. What do you suggest? And I said, don't DM on Instagram. Give up on that and move on to something else, because and we talked about it in another podcast, so we don't need to go into it in detail, but just don't bother. If you are listening to this and you're DMing people to get results in terms of meetings, please focus on something else, because that is all gone dead. I'm sure there'll be people who actually will challenge that and go, well, that's not right, because I got 4 meetings on my last DM. But I can tell you from experience, like it's
everything we say, although we say it's absolute, is not absolute. You could sign I'm so against email outreach, but there's someone out there who scaled their agency to 50K a month just off email outreach. All we can do is say what works for us and what we think is the most efficient use of your time. Yes, you can sign a client through emails, but how many emails are you going to have to send to get there? Whereas you could ring all of those people in a day and book 4 really solid meetings. Also, when you book a meeting, it's also a quality thing as well. Very much like Facebook ads, you could get 100 leads in, none of them convert, or 10 leads in and they all convert. You're always going to choose that 10 that converts. It's the same with cold calling. I think the quality of a client, it has some dependency on how you got that client. For example, we've got a client, the clients that come on super rapidly through an Instagram DM to us. So a client will find us on Instagram and say, Tom and Harry, I've got a business. I want to work with you. Let's have a meeting. Can I call you later today? A meeting tomorrow, and we'll start next week. We've had that happen to us. And those clients are the ones that cause us the most trouble. Whereas the clients that we get through like 4 or 5 meetings over a long period of time, or a big client that's taken us a year to get over the line, those are the clients that stay on forever. So I also think that even comes down to the outreach, not just the length of the meetings or how many touch points they have. If you get a client through an email outreach where, they've not been that present in agreeing to a meeting, they've not been that present in the actual meeting, is so different than you getting on a cold call, really hitting it off with a business owner, having a laugh about a football team that you both support, or because they're in the local area or whatever it is, the journey starts from that first outreach method. And I think that affects you all the way through to being a paying client.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. I just want to touch on the email that we had from that guy, Marcus, who said, and we want to bring it up on the podcast, which is, and this is actually ties in nicely to talk about leads and getting results for people. He emailed us saying, I haven't got the email to hand, but saying something along the lines of that he's actually getting leads. He's getting leads for a client, but the client is coming back to him saying that the quality isn't converting. Now, we've had this numerous times. So leads are coming in. He's bringing in through Meta and YouTube ads. He's bringing something in like 20, 25 leads a week for this client of his, which is really, really good. But the client is saying, oh, they're not converting. We can't get a hold of them, etc. So that's now becoming a problem for him when actually it's kind of out of his control. So Harry, just touch, we've had this happen, and people will find this really, really interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
So just run through what you and what we have done to combat that issue with clients.
Yeah. So this is really common. If you're listening to this, this is probably for a lead gen client, probably the biggest way you're going to lose them, unless you just physically can't get them results. But if you've got a clear strategy, you're going to bring them in leads. And what you've got to remember is you could bring in 500 leads a month for £2 a lead. But if they're not converting any of them, they're not going to keep you on as a client. Because it gets to a point where they'll say, well, I'm not making any money. It doesn't matter if you're bringing in loads of leads or not. I'm still losing money every month working with you. And then it also brings up the question of whose fault that is, because it's a tricky one to answer. There's two sides of it. Yes, the client needs to follow them up in the appropriate way. Yes, they need to have a good salesperson ringing these leads and following them up. But also, if you're not nurturing those leads coming in the appropriate way or getting them in the non-appropriate way, then it's your fault. So you can't point the finger. You need to take responsibility, but you also need to have the conversation with the client to make sure that they're doing everything that they can do. So if I was putting myself in Marcus's shoes, if I was bringing in 25 leads a week and they're not converting any, the first thing I'd do, get the client on the call immediately and have open conversation with them and say, right, from our perspective, the ads are working. The ads are doing their job because we're bringing in leads. We know they're targeted leads because hopefully on your lead gen form, they're submitting a message with that lead information saying, I have this problem. If you're a landscaper, my garden's XYZ dimensions. If you're a dentist, I've got crooked teeth. I need help with this. So you know that it's not a targeting option. That's step one. Make sure it's not a targeting option. Make sure you're not getting dud leads through that just don't even have the possibility of becoming an actual client for an actual customer for that client. Then you want to have a conversation with your client and say, right, talk me through your follow-up process. How quickly are you ringing these leads that come in? How many times are you ringing the leads that are coming in? How are you tracking the leads that are coming in? You know, what's the process that you're doing? If they're waiting 4 days to ring a lead that comes in and only ringing them once, going to voicemail, and they're calling that a dead lead, then you need to help them with that follow-up process. A lot of these people, if you work with a dentist or you work with any lead gen business, this is lead gen only, they're not salespeople. They'll be giving it to a receptionist or they'll be giving it to someone in the company to ring these leads that come in to book them in. So although you're not a sales coach or you're not, that's not part of your description, the platform, you should know how to nurture these leads, and you should know how to sell because you're a salesperson yourself. This is why it's also important to be in your business and not outsource. So you need to have that conversation and make sure they're ringing the lead within 5 to 10 minutes of it coming in, because after 5 to 10 minutes of a lead coming in through a Facebook ad or a Facebook ad form or a landing page or a funnel, the possibility of them answering the phone and converting drops by something like 80%. But also, if they don't answer that first time, you need to make sure that client's ringing them at least 3 or 4 times over the next 4 days, not spamming them every second of every day. Ring them on day 1, ring them on day 2, ring them on day 3, ring them on day 4, because the percentage increase of them answering the phone and being booked in increases massively. then what you also can do, you can also add a section on your lead gen form of when they would like the callback. So it's essential that on the lead gen form, you tell them they're going to be getting a callback to be booked in to that client service. But you could ask them, when do they want to be booked in? So they say, right, my name's Harry Kirk. This is my phone number. This is my email address. I would like to be called back between 5 and 6 p.m. because I work during the day. Then the client rings them at 5 and 6 p.m. The chance of them answering the phone and getting booked in goes up massively. That's something you do. So that's something you can edit the client's end to make sure they're pulling their weight. But that's not really enough, because if you just keep saying to the client, no, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, they're going to get sick of it, because they're going to be like, I'm doing everything physically possible. And you need to be understanding that they're not salespeople, and it's going to take them a while to get into the swing of things. But if you're guiding them, then it helps.
Harry, like even with ourselves, we actually ask our clients, are you converting them? Don't we? We actually throw it back to them and say, are you converting these leads? Like, what are you doing to contact them? Because we know that if they're not converting them, then we're worth shit, like you said. So we're quite on top of that. And we obviously have spreadsheets in which are live working docs. So, you know, when they've rung the client or rung the customer, try and get them booked in, it goes in. So we actually have a live doc that we can see the progress on with most of our clients. But you're right, like you have to, there's a 15 to half, I'd say there's 15-minute rule really. Once a lead comes through, you want to make your initial contact within 15 to 30 minutes, have an initial contact, you know, without giving any secrets away, because this is what we do and this is what we're here for, to help people. And this obviously we do train people on, but with some of our clients, a lead will come in. Okay, I won't tell you which client it is, but we have a client where a lead comes in. When that lead has been submitted, that person gets a text message to say, thank you for submitting your lead, and we're going to be in touch soon. If you want to get ahead of the game, give us a call and get booked in. They get an instant text message. We then send out an email to that person instantly to say, hey, thanks for your lead. So we've hit them on SMS and email. We then put like a scheduling on the email. So an email goes out 3 days later, nudging them again to book in with us for that service. So it could be something like, hey, you haven't booked in yet, you know, give us a call. The team are trying to get hold of you, whatever it is. So that's a 3-day delay. All this is automated. Okay. And then not just that, the client is then ringing, actively trying to call them. And then we send another text message, if required, back to that person who's filled that lead out to say, spaces are disappearing. You know, there's a bit of scarcity that we add where we're saying, you know, places are limited. And actually in some of our clients, places are limited, right? So to get in contact. So it's like we're almost hitting them on a 4-5 point basis. Yeah. And that dramatically increased the conversion rate from what it was to well over 20-30%, which is crazy numbers.
I think something you hinted on there is so important when you said that we always ask the client whether they're converting leads or not. If you're waiting for a client to come to you and say, Harry or Tom, we're not converting any of these leads, you're already on the back foot. You need to go to them to book a meeting to tell them they're not converting any. You should know automatically by looking at a spreadsheet, by looking at updates in a CRM, whatever it is, what the conversion rate of those leads is. If you're just bringing in leads and saying, right, over to you guys, I don't give a shit anymore, you're going to lose them. You're never going to keep a client long term. But you're also going to lose a client and not keep them long term if the client is constantly booking meetings with you to get updates on how they can help these conversions. You need to be in charge of it. They're not in charge of it. They're following your instructions. You're the, I don't know what you want to call yourself, the head account manager on that account. That sounds super obvious, but you need to lead it. They're listening to your advice. And going back to that, the follow-up, kind of the importance of the follow-up. And an example I always tell clients when they can't convert their leads is, I recently bought a car online on Auto Trader. I was on Auto Trader looking at loads of different cars, submitted my lead information for loads of different car dealerships to get the exact same car, filled in my name on 3 different ones. 2 of them didn't call me back till the next day. 1 of them called me back within 6 minutes at 7 p.m. at night. And then I bought that car the next day. There was nothing different in all of the cars, but I went with that one because he called me back within 6 minutes. The next day, I'd already had a call from him and agreed to go see the car. And also, I wasn't in a time and place to even pick it up. I answered the phone. They said, "Oh, we're from XYZ car dealership to talk about this car." And I said, "Mate, I'm too busy now. I don't want to talk about it." I was working, or I was about to get on a meeting.
It makes a massive difference.
It makes a huge difference. And I saw that firsthand. And if you're on a meeting, you're trying to explain to a client that how important it is, just tell them that story. Just say,
do you know, whilst I think about it real quick, mate, is there'll be people listening to this going, yeah, well, my client has said they can't follow up leads that quickly, and they get round to them when they get round to them. Would you work with that client or not?
No, you can't.
No, I don't think you can.
Because you can't.
So it dramatically impacts on your performance. And if we were about to work with someone, they're like, I can't work to those levels, Tom. My Siri is trying to talk to me. One sec. Yeah, if we had a client that said we can't follow up that process quick enough, we don't have the staff to follow them up, I would be saying, well, look, I don't know necessarily if this is right for you, because conversion's everything. You can bring a million leads, and if you're not converting any, it doesn't mean it's worthless, completely worthless.
It's physically impossible for you to sign a client like that and have them be happy with your services, unless you want to sign them on a 3-month deal, knowing that they're not going to get results, knowing that they're going to badger you every single day saying, "We're not making any money," and then you're going to end the 3 months really dissatisfied working with that client. Then go for it, but it's going to affect your brand. You're not going to be happy. The client's not going to be happy, and it's just going to be a load of shit.
Yeah, we don't recommend that at all. But again, a lot of people do it. That's their business model. Win a client for 3 months, sack them off, get no results, move on to the next. So you're just churning out $1,000 a month people, pissing them off, not getting results. Communication is shit. You're outsourcing the work, but you're bringing in some cash as a passive income, but your reputation is ruined. That is obviously something which people do, but that isn't sustainable, and it will come crashing down. So
yeah. But that's also where it's so important to set that expectation in a meeting as well. A lot of people won't tell the client that in a meeting. That's also where the problem comes in, when people are trying to sell their services on that first cold call or that first outreach message, or trying to sell their services without even having a meeting to discuss the entire process. I've seen people like get their invoice paid and then tell the client what's involved in it, that they're going to have to follow up. They're going to have to do this, this, and this. But before they've got the payment, they've sold the dream to them, saying, you're going to get clients on repeat. You're going to get 100 grand in revenue. You're going to get inbound inquiries, all of this shit. And then and then the tables immediately turn once they get paid.
Yeah.
Or they don't even, or even after they get paid, they don't tell them. They start running ads and then they tell them. Like, it's so important that you understand the strategy and how everything works. And that doesn't mean you're going to have to had previous experience. Just by listening to this podcast, hopefully that's made a few people aware that it's so important to tell the client.
People listening to this must be fascinated, because people don't talk actually about some of the stuff we talk about, not so openly. I think this is why we're so open with what the SMMA digital marketing world is like. Everyone wants to start an agency, be super fucking rich, super successful, and do a fucking Andrew Tate and sit on a boat with loads of chicks. Like, it doesn't happen. That's not the reality of it. But if you listen to what we're telling you, and you listen to realities of what it's like starting a business and how serious you can get with it, and how it can really change your life, change your everything about you. I think this podcast is just completely designed to really open up people's minds, to cut the bullshit away, cut the nonsense lies that people have been telling you, and to start making some real money in the most respectful, honorable way. And that is the most rewarding. And you'll come away from it going, fuck me, I love my job. What a job. I'm so lucky that I've discovered this business model and I'm implementing it. I think, mate, what we'll do, we're going to touch on the next podcast number 4. And in that, we're going to talk about client red flags, which are really, really important that you need to watch out for. So when would me and Harry turn away a client? And Harry's turned away a client that was a £60,000 a year potential. That's what it was on a retainer. £60,000 a year client just turned him away. Why? I'd like to know Harry's reasons why he did that. And then I'm going to talk about my daily routine. So when I wake up to when I go to bed, how many hours I work, what I do in those hours, and why that works for me personally, because that's really important that we touch on it.